So before I begin about the assessment center, let's see a quick recap, because this is not a session in isolation, but in continuity of that session too. So definitely we need some inputs from the session too as well. So let me have a little understanding about what was that learning from last session. So let's see, we did competency mapping. I want to hear from you all. Okay, let me ask a key question. So how do we go about doing a competency mapping, so that I know? So what would be the step one process when you want to do competency mapping?
You look at the JD.
Yes.
You
So
Job analysis.
job element
very
analysis.
important, absolutely, because if you want to do competency mapping, you definitely want to understand, hey, for what roles are you doing, right? Before that, you also do look at what kind of a framework you want to do. Is it a core competency framework, or a functional competency framework, or a leadership competency framework, etc.? And then step one, you are actually looking at the job descriptions of those roles for which you want to do competencies. Yes. Having said that, so in order to do the job description, we talked about a process which gives us, the input to document a job description. What is that process we do? Job analysis, right? Because that's also where I'm going to not explain that, because that's also going to be a very important for assessment center. So it's very important to do the job analysis in detail, and especially, not just to document a job description in terms of tasks and responsibility, but definitely understanding, so that I understand what are the key competencies. So only when I have a good job description, and when can I get a detailed job description? Only when I do a good detailed job analysis. And one method of doing it, I also said that you could get a comprehensive, detailed, at least a benchmark job description from ONET. You could use ONET to get a job description, and then you can customize it. Yes, after doing a job description, then we need to do the job element analysis, which we talked about, so that I get an understanding of what are the job elements, the major elements which are required by this job, so that then I can actually then what come to an understanding of what are the functional competencies of knowledge and skill required to do these job elements, right? And thereafter, then I talked about the behavioral competencies to do these tasks, to do these elements. Now, there were two kinds of the methods to do them. One is the open method, and the other is taking what? Picking from a inventory. And I talked about what CONCOM competency framework. So this is how you do the competency framework for any role, the knowledge, skill, the ability, and others. So you can actually identify, you can map the competencies. Now, having said that, when we are talking about an assessment center, say, for example, in this class, in this session of competency, we have about 10 participants. Say all of them are supervisors, okay? They have to be promoted to the next level. So on Monday morning, I'm taking all these 10 people, these 10 participants, to go through a evaluation process. Okay, I take them to a hotel, and there what I do, I also take 6 assessors. Simply, what is the word assessor means? Who will assess them, right? And these SSS need not be from outside. I'm taking my third level managers who have great expertise in evaluations, etc. I'm also taking my some of the HR staff. So I'm taking about 6 assessors. Then what I do, I've actually briefed them, and also listed out all the key competencies for the next level to be promoted. So I will identify competencies. And then what am I doing? Then I'm also then looking at various kinds of simulation tests and ability tests and all kinds of tests, so that I'm able to create a kind of what situation which is required, just like a job situation, multiple tests. And what are the assessors going to do in this? They're all observing people. So, like for example, I've said 6 people are doing what? They are actually doing I've given them a problem, a leaderless kind of situation, and they have to decide, they have to uh, talk about it and come out with a solution. And my assessors are observing everything. Who's taking the lead, or who's giving a lot of ideas, who's asking them to take a notes, etc. While then there are 6 other participants who are only individually doing a case study, writing out, analyzing, they have to give a document. And after that, they will also be put to what? Doing a role play where they are doing a performance revenue for a underperformed employee. And then some of the participants are also doing an inbox exercise where they have a mailbox, and within a given time. So there are several tests, multiple tests. And after the end of the day, I'm collecting all the observations. Assessors or the observers are collecting all the data. Then they are actually documenting that observation. Then they are classifying the data based on the dimensions required for those competencies, and then evaluating and say, hey, they're giving the feedback to me. Okay. As the head of the entire assessment center. So what I want to know, has anybody gone through an assessment center, or have you seen an assessment center?
Yes, ma'am.
Has
I've gone
anybody
through.
gone through? Yeah, Aman?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. So this is how it looks. A situation I have said, no? That they'll all be put in one room in a hotel, then they'll be given multiple simulation tests, etc., etc. At the end of, and there'll be people who will be observing at the end of the day. Then there will be a documented kind of a report on each and every one. So what is an assessment center? So what are we going to do today? What is an assessment center? Components of an assessment center. How do you design an effective assessment center? How do you conduct one? What are these criteria? Okay. Then how do you give feedback? Then what are these legal ethical considerations and all that? Okay. So having given you a scenario, let us first of all understand, because none of you have actually gone through. So nobody, right, has seen an assessment center or has an understanding. So I will then give you.
Ma'am, I'm not sure if my voice is reaching.
This is who is
Priya.
this? Priya? Yes,
Yes.
Priya. I can hear you now. Yeah. You wanted to
Yes.
say something,
So,
Priya? Yeah.
yeah, I was saying that I have
Hmm.
been a part of an assessment center. I have
Mhm,
built an
mhm.
assessment center for built an assessment center for development of a certain role in the organization. So I've been part of that.
Excellent. Excellent. Just wanting to get an understanding, if anybody has an understanding, a little understanding, or absolutely no understanding. So it's good to know that Priya has already done a development center. That's good to develop people. All right, great. So let us understand what is an assessment center before we do a. So in fact, Priya can also add. So an assessment center as I explained to you all, just gave you a little bit of a scenario, a situation. It's a method of evaluating. What is it? It's a method of evaluating, or I can say assessing. What do you do in interview? In interview also, you are assessing people by just what? A set of, by just asking a set of, what do you do in an interview? Anybody? What do we do in an interview? Please, yeah, I
We
want you to be a
assess
Questions.
little
whether the
more.
person,
Huh?
Last
Pardon?
question.
we assess,
Yeah, we assess or evaluate. And what is the criteria used?
so we look at what are the technical requirements of the role, what are the behavioral
Yes.
requirements of the
Yes.
role, and then ask,
Yes. So
modify
there
our
is
questions
so we
accordingly.
have a good understanding that, hey, this person has come for, and we have to evaluate him for a particular position or a role. And the role requires certain knowledge, certain skills, certain behavioral competencies. Is that so? Yeah? Okay. And how do I assess? I assess through what? A set of questions, right? Yes or no? I assess through a set of questions. Now, all of you recall this iceberg model of 80-20, 20% is above the water and 80% is below. Yes?
Yeah.
Now, what is above the water? The skill part and the knowledge part. And what is below? The motives, the traits, the concept, the self-concept, etc. That is the core part. In fact, our entire personality, our ability depends on what is actually submerged in the water. Now, during an interview, I ask a person questions. When I want to test him for knowledge, which is quite easy. I test him for a skill. I will tell him, okay, a person has come. I have to ask him I have to check his Excel skills. I'll ask him, okay, this is a spreadsheet. Please make a spreadsheet. Or a financial manager, I'll ask him, okay, make some financial, report, etc. Now, when I have to test him for something which is deep within the water, like for example, his core behaviors, like say decision making, or say, for example, his customer focus, customer service orientation, or something like empathy, or something like, which is really core. Just asking few questions, will that give me a good understanding of the person's behavior? It is not.
No.
The same yardstick cannot be used for all knowledge, skill, and behavior. And if you notice, in most of the organizations, when we are doing selection and when we are interviewing, even for those positions like leadership positions, where complex level of skills and behaviors are required, we use just interviewing method, right? Now, when I ask Melissa, hey, do you have the business acumen? Melissa will say, yes, of course I do have business acumen. Nobody is going to deny and say, hey, I don't have it, right? Are you a team member, team player? Yes, of course I'm a team player. But how does it prove, or how do I know that? I will only know when she comes to the, she will join my organization, and then many stakeholders has come up with a lot of conflicts, etc. That's the time I get to understand. Before that, why don't I actually then, assess her and evaluate her by giving certain simulations? Huh? A typical, what we call it was, whether it is low fidelity or high fidelity. I used a word like fidelity. What does it mean? Simulations or tests or exercises to evaluate almost like a job-like situation. Are you with me? Job-like situation, so that that person, I'm actually trying to put a stimuli so that that person can respond, and I know exactly, hey, how is he going to respond if this is the kind of a situation? Okay, So in an assessment center, so what do we do today? Not necessary that it should be only for complex, only leadership positions, managerial positions, which need a lot of, a lot of skills and competencies. Not necessary. Some of the best organizations are also using assessment center for their entry level positions as well. Like for example, in my organization, in the last two organizations, whether it was Starters or Sutherland or Apollo Health Street, we use, especially because for our entry level, we needed certain kind of a key competencies like customer focus. Like when we were recruiting people for customer champions for Virgin Mobile, we wanted that, hey, that was very, very important. So we could not do that just by asking questions, asking interview questions. So we had to take them through assessment centers. Okay. So assessment center is not a place, it's a process of evaluating using multiple what evaluation techniques, simulations. Okay. So that you are able to evaluate, you are able to gather much more data and able to which predicts and which is reliable, and you are able to select the right kind of a person. Okay, guys. So that is assessment center. So it is not a center, as they say, center. Let me give you a little history of this assessment center. In fact, it goes back to World War. In World War One, it in fact, when they were trying to recruit officers, especially during Germany during World War One, they used a lot of cognitive tests, which became very, very dominant. And then later on, in conjunction with the selection of these military officers, both Germany and British also used these, uh, especially testing for leadership, because they wanted to test leadership traits in their officers. So they wanted to be sure of, whenever they have recruited officers, that they had shown leadership traits. So that's where it was. They used what simulations. They used a lot of multiple tests. And then in the late 1950s, it was when the AT&T, I'm sure everybody knows about AT&T, that was the first company which used assessment centers, and they gave it a name called assessment center. But typically it is just a process. Okay. Yeah. So that's about the history. So you have to remember three things in an assessment center. A, you are using multiple tests, which are typically simulations. For what? For evaluating certain dimensions, or those, we will talk about characteristics of those competencies. Okay. Whether the participants have what kind of a behavior are they showing, gathering the data, and then coming to a conclusion. So this is what is an assessment center. So typically when you talk about what are the features of an assessment center, now, as I said, job analysis become very important, because you have to do a very comprehensive job analysis to get a good job description, because relevant behaviors are very, very important. Unless and until you have a very good job description, which will give you a good understanding of the key competencies that required for that role, you cannot come to a conclusion of what are those dimensions which impact the performance of this job. Because ultimately, why am I actually doing this? Because I want to raise the performance, I want to improve my performance, or I want to select the right kind of a person. Like Priya mentioned, she did a developmental center, in the sense identifying the needs of the identifying training needs or developing employees in their organization. So those key competencies required for them to be developed, or the gaps in terms of the gaps which are maybe for competencies for the present role or maybe for the future role. So job analysis for the relevant behavior becomes important. Then some of the other features are what kind of a techniques am I going to use to bring in simulations, then observations for every dimension, then assessors. I'm going to explain all that, and how do I record that behavior? What kind of a formats am I going to use? And then what kind of a training am I going to give the assessors, etc. So how am I going to integrate all the observations? So these are some of the features. Not so I'm just giving you a run through, but I'll help you to understand the entire thing. So having said that, what are some of the purposes of assessment center? I have given you a background. So what do you think are some of the goals or some of the purposes of an assessment center? Anybody? What could be? I gave you a good understanding of what an assessment center is and how an assessment center, what are the features and how do we do an assessment center? What do you think are some of the purposes of an assessment center then? I've already have it. Yeah. So probably I can give you identifying. Yeah,
Ma'am, I will
Priya,
just
yes.
I'll just share an experience here.
Yep,
And while the
yep,
purposes, are already mentioned,
yep.
so I was working with a food retail store, and
Okay.
we had some large stores which were coming up for which we needed store managers. And a
Right.
large store manager usually would handle about, anywhere between 7 to 10 crore of business every month. So we needed
Okay.
someone who is, up for that task. And we had
Okay.
some contenders who had handled either small or mid-level stores.
Okay.
And we already had identified a few of the people, and we felt that,
Okay.
these people will be good to do this role. But which was
Okay.
a perception from whatever they had spoken to us, the way they would communicate, the way they would participate in meetings.
Right.
But then we did the assessment center.
Right.
And the data showed us something completely different from what our perception was. Like some people they were very good with numbers, but they really lacked the leadership which was required for a large store. So, to cut the long story short, I think one of the key things assessment center does is we do have a perception of what role somebody could do, but the assessment center through data clarifies it for us in the various competencies or parameters that we are assessing them on, because we put them through the real scenarios and then we get to see what the behavior is like, how the behavior comes out.
Yeah.
So
A
it
very
removes
good
that
example.
bias.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good example, because so first of all, identifying what are those key competencies required to do this role. That is a store manager to handle 7 to 10 crores. Okay. Volume of business, value of business, everything, etc. And a large team. Now, having understood that a store manager requires these key competencies, especially in terms of leadership competencies, okay, sometimes what happens, just like a good salesman is not a good sales manager. A good salesman can bring in a good number of sales, but you promote him to a sales manager, he may not be a good sales manager because the roles are totally different. A sales manager's role is very, very different. He has to manage a sales team. He has to achieve his target through the salespeople. So therefore, when you put them through a assessment center and testing for leadership competencies, and because they go through the simulation, as you said, the almost like situations which match with the job, then you can actually gather behavior which will assess that who are best suited for the role. And so it takes away what the bias. it takes away the perception, because many a times when we are doing an interview, we also bring in what we call it as what? Those biases, subjective biases, like for example, the halo effect, or what? The Me Too effect we have. There are a list of biases we bring in, or uh, the leniency error. So there are a lot of biases. So when we actually put them through those multiple tests and multiple simulation exercises, it eliminates this, at least to a great extent. So one is that it will all, and so assessment center can also be identified for potential talent in your organization. Then it can also identify development needs, which is called development center. So today we have something called the DC, development center. So the goal or the purpose of that center is different. It is to understand the developmental needs. So therefore it's more of a developmental nature. Then again, enhancing decision making. That is because of the data which comes from multiple tests. So it helps you to make better decisions. So thereby improving the organizational effectiveness. Okay. Predictive validity. What does it mean? Predictive validity, that it ensures that what? The person you take you can predict performance. So when you take people through an assessment center, it will have a higher rate of prediction as opposed to just an interview, and reduces bias. So rightly stated, and thank you, Priya, for giving us such a beautiful what is it, your own case. Yeah. So this is,
Ma'am, I had one question.
yeah.
So, you mentioned about the development centers and assessment centers.
Yes,
So,
Smita.
I just wanted to know that, so I understood that both of them, the process will be the same. The goals are different. So, in an assessment center, do you also put the people, like once the assessment is done, in the development center, you will put them through training and developmental activities. In the assessment center, your aim is either recruit or promote. So will you also be
Selection,
giving,
promotion, right?
will you also be putting them through training and development activities after the assessment center, or it's just a
Yeah,
decision?
I will be explaining in detail the difference between an assessment center and development center. But I just want to tell you that because then probably it will be very, it will strike you better. That
Sure.
you asked me something, that will you still put, say for example, I'm conducting an assessment center for a customer care executive. Okay.
Hmm.
So where do I source my candidates? Internal or outside? I get them from outside, right?
Right.
I will source a lot of resumes from outside.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
So after screening, shortlisting, doing the preliminary interview, so I have actually then filtered, and I have say about 100 odd people, and I'm going to take them through an assessment center, 20 each batch. So I'll be covering say 3 batches or 4 batches. Okay, because I have to actually take in say maybe 50 customer care executives, and I've kept a ratio of 1:2 or 1:3. Now, I've taken them through, selected them. So, will I do training for them?
No, since they are external
No,
people,
no.
you will not.
They are external people. So,
Right.
typically, assessment center, when I say, I'm selecting people from outside.
Right. But
Okay.
what if it is a
But
promotion?
now, when I'm doing a promotion, okay, it need not be called. So what I will be doing, I will be doing an assessment center. It is like identifying my top talent or whatever. But the rest of them, I might be giving feedback and also improvement, because maybe after 2 years, they also have to be promoted.
Right.
Got it?
Right. Right.
Got the difference?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So it's like internal and external. The
Okay.
purpose is different. Assessment center and development center.
Understood.
Today, developmental centers are being used across the globe in a big way because, as you know, that recruitment is a cost. You want to create your own talent pipeline, and you want to raise the bar. You want to have your human capital readiness. So constantly, so you are doing development centers. Why essentially? Because you want to be focused in your training intervention. You don't want to do any XYZ training because your budget is limited. Not like the days in public sector, I have so much of budget and I'll sit and then start sending people for any and every kind of program. Because again, you are also responsible for the ROI. You are also responsible not just as a metric, asking number of programs rolled out, number of kinds of programs rolled out, number of hours of training a program. No, what is the impact on business? Not on activity only. The impact of business has become very, very important. Likewise, as an HR function, the CHRO is also responsible to ensure that if you are running recruitment, if you are doing selection, hey, what is the cost and how effective are your processes in selecting the right candidate? Your attrition is one indicator, right? Because as you know, one good employee, if you lose, then you have to again, it's 10 times the cost to again recruit a person, train a person. So therefore you have to have better ways of selecting a person. So so you have to make a discretion and differentiation in terms of, will I just use an interview, or will I also use an interview just like what we're going to do tomorrow, a competency based interviewing using a PEI technique. Okay. Ultimately for what? To have better predictability.
Right.
To ensure that the person I have taken can perform better. Does
Right.
it help you, Smita?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Ma'am Nitendra here. I have a question here. Ma'am, how many participants we can have in assessment center?
Yeah.
Ideally.
So ideally, you must have just about 10 to 15 participants. If you have more participants, what will happen? You will have to have more assessors. How many can you manage? So there is a number which I'm going to tell you how many participants, then how many assessors, because you need to have one assessor or what I call it, one observer to observe two people at least. And it's a very costly affair as well. Okay. So there is some logistics and I will help you with that. We'll come to that a little later.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
So,
yeah.
Okay. I'll definitely touch upon that, Nitendra.
Yeah,
all right?
sure, ma'am. Thanks.
Just give you an understand. I'm not touching upon analysis and etc. All that we have done it. Competency framework is very, very important when you do an assessment center. Why? Needless to say, if I'm going to recruit a particular role, and if I don't have competencies in place, and if I don't have those dimensions, which are called the behavioral indicators or the bars, then how am I going to build my appropriate exercise to test what? Got it? So competency framework is very, very important. And I will show you certain competencies, etc. We'll come to that. So what else do? We actually then have a set of appropriate exercises, which I'm sure, which you already have. Wilma has sent. Say, for example, a list of exercises, common ones, role play. I'm sure all of you heard of role play. We will be doing one role play, a quick role play. A role play is a very good simulation to observe certain key behaviors, and in some time we will be playing a role play. In basket, anybody who's heard of an in basket? In basket is very, very simple. This exercise, why is it first of all given? It's a simulation exercise. It's a very effective exercise. Why? Let me explain first of all, how does this exercise look? you come to the office. You have a mailbox full of what? Memos, emails, etc. Now you need to execute that within a time span of maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, etc. So what am I testing? A, time management. Okay. Two, am I able to prioritize urgent, not urgent, important? How am I doing? Am I planning and you are planning and organizing your delegation? Okay. So there are a lot of sometimes even written communication. So a lot of things can be assessed in one simple in-basket exercise. Probably we'll be doing that as well. Group discussions. What do you think we can assess in group discussions? What are some of the things we can do in group discussions? Anybody? I would love to.
Leadership.
Yeah, Priya? Huh?
Leadership.
Anjana? Huh?
Leadership.
Leadership is
How
okay. Yeah.
someone is driving the discussion.
So,
Knowledge.
like for example, I can do two kinds of discussions. One is leaderless discussion. Like for example, I will say, hey, all four of you. Okay, I want to discuss women make better leaders or men make better leaders. And then let me see. All right. So I want to see how people participate. Does somebody take a lead, or does somebody summarize, or does somebody say, hey, this is too much of a noise. Let's actually systematically look at a plan. So I'm looking at how people are conducting themselves, or is there a leader emerging for a leaderless group, or somebody is looking at some problems, or are they working through everything? Or maybe I will say, hey, Melissa is the leader, and these are 4 team members. Okay, and this is a case study. I want you to discuss the case, identify the issues and concerns, and come up with a solution. Right? So it's a little structured. So there are so many things which can come up in this. So I can do various kind of combinations. Then presentations. What do you think one can actually see? It's presentation typically is what? An individual exercise, right? So what are some of the things which you can make out from a presentation?
How
You
well
want to
someone
assess
is able to
ability,
express or pass the
ability to
message.
communicate. Say, for example, ability to present, oral communication, right? Ability, and also at the same time, I'm also watching the voice, the eye contact, the body language. So in presentation, a lot of things can be done. That means what? Both your way of communicating, your body language, everything can be seen. Your eye contact, how is he able to handle the audience? Is he able to take questions from the audience? How is he able to engage the audience, etc. So then written exercises, of course, you can give many written exercises. Say, for example, even a case study can be a written exercise where you will say, hey, please study this and then give me, all the, give me a kind of a document where you have actually put all the what concerns and then some of the options for it. So you can have a document. Psychometric testing. What kind of psychometric testing can we do? There are many psychometric tests today's times off the shelf. What are some of them? MBTI. Have you heard of MBTI?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
helps you to
Yes.
understand a person's extrovertism, introvertism, right? MBTI. Right? I can give you that instrument if anyone wants to do it and we can assess. Then I can give a FIRE OB, fundamental interrelationship orientation inventory, where it helps you to understand inclusion, control, right? All the 3 dimensions. So there are various, and in fact, Vilma has also sent you one RSI instrument, which will help you in terms of understanding, what are your career drivers. And of course, interviews. Interviews are not those standard interviews, but we call them as behavioral event interviewing, which we use in assessment center because the person is trained in a behavioral interview to take the person through critical incidents and then understand and the behaviors which have come out through those critical incident situations, and then observe them, record them, and then classify them into which competency and where do they come, which bar. So observer also has a great amount of work in this. Okay. So obviously, it's very, very important when you are doing these exercises that I customize these exercises to the kind of industry, right? It is a retail industry. I need you to customize it to the retail or automobile or a pharmaceutical, because it's only then that there will be realism close to the job, close to the industry, and relevance. Then use of behavioral indicators, that is the bars, because only then I will see, hey, these are the bars, or this is the kind of bars which are required on a rating scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Melissa, what kind of a behavior has she demonstrated? And therefore, she has demonstrated this behavior and it is aligning with what? Rating scale of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So if I as an observer will write, say, oh, she was angry, do you think it will be a right kind of an observation? Was that a behavior? So Melissa is going through an assessment center, okay? And I as an observer has made a note. I'm doing some problem solving. So I'll say, hey, she was angry. Just so is that a good observation to document? Quick.
It's only a part. I mean, it doesn't give any information.
Okay. You are very close. Anybody else? Because why I'm emphasizing so that you know exactly you can differentiate.
Ma'am, since it is not a part of competency, so I guess it is irrelevant.
What is Nitendra saying?
Since anger management, we are not identified as a part of competency. So I guess going through it would be a irrelevant one.
Relevant, is it? Okay, you are getting into relevant or relevant. So I said, even if it is
as an
relevant, I just said she was angry. Amit Gupta is raising his hand. I want to hear his comment.
I have one thing. I mean, about an year back, we were hiring for a kind of a new role within the organization. And this role was basically to, to get into a market which the company was not into. And that point of time, what we did was we did a kind of an industry benchmark and we shortlisted a couple of candidates. Now, this was a business head CEO kind of a role. And the shortlisted 2 or 3 candidates we had asked them to present the case studies. So they were to evaluate in terms of the competition, the market analysis, trends, looking at the kind of financial things, the kind of resource allocation and all. So, of course, then they were made to present their presentation, their cases. We had a lot of questions with them. So will it be a part of kind of a assessment center for them or a kind of a normal interview process for them?
No. I will come to that definitely, Amit. I want to clarify this, just because we are going to do some of the things. Say, for example, when I say Melissa was angry, okay, this is the behavior I have observed. Now, when I say angry, were you able to see? I'm only inferring by what Melissa did. I'm inferring. So, as an observer, when I'm going through an assessment center, I should not be making an inference. Are you understanding what is observed behavior and what is inference? Okay. Now, what is it? If I say when there was a leaderless or group discussion, Melissa was thumping her fist on the table. So can you see that behavior? What did I write? Melissa was thumping her fist on the table. That has to be documented. So thereafter, I can say that because of maybe thumping, I am now saying, oh, that inference, I could say she was a little angry or whatever. So in assessment center, there is no scope for just writing inferences. You are supposed to be non-evaluative. Observers are supposed to be non-evaluative. You are observing as is what the person is not communicating. This is he has remained silent. So so that's the best part of an assessment center, that you're observing whatever the person says, does, etc. Okay. So the observer has a very big major role so therefore, in fact, observers have to be trained a lot in an assessment center as to how they should be documenting, what they should be documenting. Now, in order to do that, the competency frameworks with their behavior indicators become very, very important. Okay, so that was just to give you an understanding. Now, these are all the exercises which I have already talked about. We will be, in fact, you have because we have to spend time on exercises. So I'm actually not going to explain each and every test, but maybe wherever necessary, I will be helping with some understanding. Okay. So let me first show you, before I get into that, a matrix. How does it look? Can you see this diagram? Can you see this, guys?
Yes,
Yeah?
yes,
Yes.
yes,
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 ma'am.
yes.
Yes. So typically when I'm actually designing an assessment center, what will I do? I'll have to first of all list out all the required competencies for that particular position for which I'm actually evaluating a set of participants. So here, if you see a list of problem analysis, decision making, leadership, empathy, administrative skills, delegation, planning and organizing, stress tolerance, teamwork, oral communication, written communication. So these are the list of competencies to be tested or evaluated or assessed. Now I need to understand then that, hey, what are those simulation exercises or what are those tests I need to design which can assess these competencies? So can you actually see them, or should I make it bigger? Can you see them now?
Yes. Yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
So I've said written case analysis. It can test problem as well. It can also do a decision making, because it will have a case study where they will have to analyze a case, take certain decisions. Okay. Then oral presentation, where it can also test what? Leadership. Then there is leaderless group discussions, where I explain to you what is the leaderless group discussion. And through this simulation, I can assess problems analysis, decision making, and also leadership. Can I do that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Somebody said yes or somebody said no.
A bit more understanding is required.
No. So Amit, if you can see the dimension, in the sense I have written a list of competencies which have to be assessed. And horizontally, I have also written a list of simulation exercises, tests, which will assess those competencies. Right? So typically when I design assessment center, I will be using one exercise which can test two competencies.
Okay.
Typically, it's a good idea not to do not to do two leaderless groups, not to do two written case analysis. Rather, do something different so that you can test those competencies. Okay. So if you see this into marks, you will see that these list of all these simulation exercises, for example, written case, oral presentation, leadership, leaderless group discussions, interview simulations, in basket, fact finding, group tasks, and other business games are testing most of the competencies, if not three, at in two situations, right?
Okay.
Have you seen the matrix?
Yeah.
So it helps me to observe for the assessor's behavior, because just observing the competency in one simulation only does not necessarily give you sufficient data. Got it? Does not necessarily give you sufficient data. So in order to get more data, for the observers to gather more, document more data, it's a good design to ensure that the simulation exercises, the multiple simulation exercises, test competency at least in 3 situations, if not limited, minimum number should be at least 2. Because just saying, okay, I will have one exercise for testing one competency, then it becomes very, very narrow. Okay. Is that understood by everybody? When I'm talking about a design in terms of, typically how you should be designing for the competencies, how many kind of simulation exercises you should be giving. So this is called actually a matrix. That is what, dimensions observable matrix, or saying, designing simulations for the list of competencies you want to assess. Is this very clear?
Yes.
I will also show you one more exercise where I can show. 1 second. So let me first of all explain when we are talking about competency dimensions. So what are we talking about? We are talking about behaviors. Earlier on, I said, what is behavior? It definitely has to be observed, because whatever is observed can be measured. So behavior is not something about feelings or opinions or inferences or vague generalizations or judgments. Okay. So, for example, we're doing a role play. Say, for example, if I'm doing a role play and I am attending to an irate customer. This is about a customer complaint. I'm dealing with a customer complaint. So, if I'm observing his behavior, I cannot say that he was not attending to the customer properly. Huh? So there is nothing like feeling or opinion. You have to document, or you have to exactly write what you can see. So behavior is what can be seen, observed. And especially in assessment center, you have to really understand the difference between behavior, the feeling, opinion, inference. Okay. I just told you that example. He was angry. So angry is an inference. It is not a behavior. So what is that he did to come to that conclusion that he was angry? That is the behavior you need to document. So let us see how some dimensions, let us look at few dimensions. Say, for example, if I'm talking about planning and organizing, how can you say that person was very good at planning and organizing? What are some of those behaviors you can observe, see, which makes you feel that the person is very good at planning and organizing? For example, if you are seeing that he is setting his priorities, right? Can you say that he is a good planning and that's a behavior? Or he coordinates the work of all involved parties, or he plans work in a logical and orderly manner, organize and plans own actions and those of others, properly assigns routine work to subordinates, plans follow up of routinely assigned items, sets specific dates for meeting, replies, actions, etc., requests to be kept informed, uses calendar, develops to-do list in order to accomplish goals. So these are some of the behavioral indicators which you can see in this person who is good at planning and organizing. Will you say yes or no?
Yes.
Are you able to now? Let us look at another dimension, very important before. Say, for example, I have to assess teamwork and collaboration. What are some of the behavioral indicators? Actively participates in team activities, communicates and cooperates with team members, resolves conflicts and maintains team harmony, contributes to a positive team culture, demonstrates flexibility and adaptability, overall teamwork and collaboration rating. So what happens now? What will I do? Say, for example, in an assessment center, I have this competency called teamwork and collaboration. And I have put a game or I have put an exercise to test teamwork and collaboration, or say a leaderless group kind of a thing. I have to look out for all these things. Easy actively participating, easy communicating, easy resolving. So observe all that, and then I will put a rating saying that, hey, he was here because I saw him doing all this. So there is substantial evidence of behavior demonstrated by this person. I am not saying something on my own or inferring it. I'm showing sufficient demonstrated behavior. Look at another example. Communication. Can somebody read? Under this communication, it's a cluster.
So, ma'am, just one question while you're opening that.
Yeah.
These observation criteria, is this what we would get from the Qualcomm inventory, the behavioral inventory? The criteria.
You can get it, but typically you also then can develop indicators based on what? After having identified competencies, you should be talking to a high performer or a superior performer who's in that role and ask him for a critical situation under which, how did he respond? He will tell it like a story. And then you can actually document that, then classify them and say, hey, these are those dimensions required, and a high performer will perform like this. So you can build a rating scale of 1 to 3 or 1 to 5. Okay?
Okay.
So this is called critical incident situation technique. Or we also we call it as behavioral event interviewing. In the sense, using a critical incident, which is actually like a critical situation, you are going through the behaviors demonstrated by this high performer. For example, I'll just give you an example. Say, for example, in fact, I think I talked about it in last. Say there is a recruiter. Okay. Now you want to bring certain key behaviors. Now, so you'll have to ask a very good recruiter who's a very high performer, saying that, hey, take me through a situation where you think that there was this unique requirement which took time, took challenge, and you were not able to actually fill in that position. Now, what is that you did, and how did you go about? What did you do? The real key competencies and their dimensions come about when you talk to these superior performers. So it's a long method, but that's the best method in terms of, talking to high performers and also to low performers, that is average performers. Then you are able to find out a threshold performance and a what? Differentiated performance. What does, what does it require at a threshold and what does it require at a differentiated level?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One more question, sorry.
Yes,
I was
yes.
so you showed us a matrix sometime back.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that, that we must test each dimension by at least 3 tests, 2 to 3 tests, just so that it is valid. The observation we are seeing is not a one-off. I had read somewhere that ideally, I mean, of course, situations might differ, but ideally, one dimension should not be tested by, like, 3 is necessary, but we should not have, let's say, all the tests testing one dimension only, because the
All
cost,
the tests.
for example,
Absolutely, you're right.
okay.
You can't have all the tests, all the simulation exercises testing one dimension. But what you have to have, so therefore, when you're using multiple simulations, I'll just go through that slide again. Multiple simulations, it's very, very important that at least there should be 2 simulation exercises which are going to assess one dimension. Are you getting me?
Right.
Not only, I mean, they should, minimum, they should be testing 2 times. That means when I'm doing, say, for example, I'll just take you to that.
Right. So
This-
here my
this is
question
it.
was, for example, in the decision making. So if we see most of the others, they are either being evaluated by 2 or 3. But if you look at decision making and probably also problem analysis, other than one test, every other dimension is actually, every other test is testing the dimension of problem solving and decision making. So while of course the more data, better it is. But do we need to prioritize in terms of costs, like cost, time, those kind of concerns? Do we need to prioritize that, okay, decision making is being covered by 4 others? Let me focus higher on problem solving with these other 4. Let's not, if I
So
have
when
to
you're
take a brand.
designing, so every competency here, let me use this one. Every competency here, if you see problem analysis, it so happens sometimes that when you use a design that, like for example, in leadership group discussion, there will definitely be some decision making,
Correct.
not necessary. Even if you don't want to test it, some data can show up. Okay.
Correct. So do we prioritize or do we focus on capturing that data, was my question.
Yeah. So, if it is coming up and then you have a small brief there where if the data is showing up, you can document the data, not necessarily. But as you said, that, all the tests should not be assessing, like if there's problem analysis, that 10 exercises should not be testing, just one test, one competency.
Okay.
So there's another matrix also I'll show you. Interesting. Okay. So let me just give a little more clarity on this, which is very important because we were talking about what? Communication cluster. See, this will be the last dimension which I'll talk about because the rest we want to do some exercises. Communication. So say, for example, under communication, I want to evaluate a person. So what are some of the things I can actually then assess? It could be oral communication, it could be written communication, it could be listening, it could be also persuasiveness, depending on the nature of the job, which is much more important, etc. So then these are those behavioral indicators which will indicate, like say, for example, expresses thoughts verbally, non-verbally in a clear, concise, straightforward manner that is appropriate for the target audience. So Where is he on a scale of 1 to 5? That will also demonstrate oral communication. Again, about written communication. How is he expressing ideas clearly, succinctly, writing, using appropriate, etc., etc. Listening actively attends to now persuasiveness. So if I want to assess these things, say for example, can I assess written communication without giving some kind of a document for writing, right? Because I want to see how is he expressing his ideas clearly or succinctly. So necessarily I'll have to create a simulation exercise where there is something given for him to write. Will you agree? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah. For listening, that is, so I'll need to either give him a role play where I will give some kind of an irate customer where whether he's listening, I can do that depending on the job, right? Or if he's an HR person, I can also give some kind of a performance review where he is actually looking at, say, PIP person or somebody who has not performed. So I can also then look at the way he's doing the performance review. Is he listening, right? Or if he is trying, I can do something where, so I need to understand what, so these are important. What these dimensions, these behavioral indicators, wise, these indicators are very, very important in order to design or in order to structure my exercises. Okay, guys, are you getting that into, in place? Because if I'm actually designing certain exercises and they are not helping me, they do not have the scope to evaluate these indicators, then it is pointless. That's what I'm trying to make, which is very, very important. The simulation exercises have to be such that they create a job-like a situation where you want to assess those behavioral indicators. Okay. So quickly, guys, I want to give you a small,
Srividya here,
yeah.
ma'am.
Pardon?
Srividya here.
Yeah, Srividya, tell me.
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, in our case, we are going to start the competency mapping process for all the employees. So, behavioral assessment is okay for all employees to do. It's okay, but how can we create an assessment center, or what kind of exercises we can ask employees to do when we do it as a bulk? In a recruitment case, it's 1 or 2 cases, that's okay. And promotion also, it's 1 or 2 cases we can manage. But when we do as a bulk, how we can do all these exercises?
Srividya, why do you want to do all at a bulk? How can you do that? Huh?
No,
First of all, tell me, I told you, no, big bang, you can't do that. No, you have to do incremental. First of all, who is going to believe you? How are you going to convince? And, people who are going through all this, they also have, something, you need to sell the idea. You need to, and you have to communicate so much why you are doing, what are you doing, what are the goals, huh? To increase what, etc. Are you getting me?
Yes, ma'am, but we don't have skill metrics that is matching to the profiles. So we just want to start the process. That's why.
Yeah, but this will take up maybe one-on-one. I can help you with I will tell you what exact how to go about. Okay, because center is not for everybody, because assessment center is for a target group of people, audience, who have to be assessed in a particular, for a particular position. Are you with me? It is not, you can't mix up all positions and then run an assessment center. I hope everybody is getting that clear. Are you getting that clear? If you recall, Priya mentioned, we were looking at a store manager, one position. Now I have about 10 people. I have done sourcing, selection, screening, etc. I filtered everybody. Okay, I have taken. Now I want to take the best person. Maybe 2 people, 3 people. So I want to run an assessment center. It is not that you are going to run it, assessment center does not mean that different positions and one assessment center. No, it is for a particular position. Got it? Say, for example, I'm going to the campus, entry level, right? I have done what? Filtration, entry level. When you go to campus, how many people will come? Thousands of students will come, right? So you have run a exam. And then what will you do? People who have got 60% as above, I filtered them, first level. Then I will go through some group level discussions, etc., etc. Again, filtration. Then some interview process, again, filtration. Okay. Then I have got about, say, 100 candidates. Now I want to take the best people in that. And I know that there are 4 or 5 competencies which are very, very key. For example, innovation and creativity is very important for me. Okay. So, or a couple of other things. So I'm going to then build and structure an assessment center so that these 100 people can be taken through an assessment center, and I can take the best people, 20, maybe 30, maybe 40, maybe. Are you with me? So don't get confused with assessment center means I will put everybody in through that for all kinds of positions. No. Because you have to be, yeah, this is clear, no? I hope everybody else is clear. Huh? Okay. So I want to quickly help you all with one small role play before I take you through the entire process of assessment center. Let us do a simulation of a role play, and let me stop sharing and put that out. Everybody's got that, I think. Yeah. Okay. I'm an internet provider company. Okay. I'm an internet provider company, and I'm trying to recruit what? Customer service executives. Okay. Or customer service representatives. Now, I want to ensure that my customer service representatives have what? That customer service orientation. Now, you may say, why can't I actually interview and find out whether they have that customer service orientation? But it is to do a lot with that 80% which is submerged. A lot to do with their self-concept, with their values, with their traits, innate traits, where they can offer that kind of a customer service. Okay? Because it has to come from within. So I want to test for customer service orientation. Now I want to have a role play. Amit, I will take
Yes, ma'am.
2. Anybody who can volunteer? Who want to be 2 volunteers?
I can become one of the volunteer.
One of the volunteer. And I
Yeah.
will make Priya the other volunteer. Okay?
Sure.
So Amit is going to play the role of customer service representative, right? Because you are the person who has come, and I have to test you for the, for the key competency, which is called customer service orientation. What is the scenario? You receive a call from the customer. Priya is going to be the customer. Okay. And she's frustrated. Why? Because she has to do a video call conferencing, and then there is no internet service. And she's paying by the nose, but still there's no internet service. It happens quite often, Priya?
Yep.
Huh? Okay. For the past 1 week, she has complained, but no internet service. They explained that they have already contacted the company multiple times, but haven't received a satisfactory resolution every time. So the customer is upset and demands immediate action to resolve the issue. So your goal is to address, Amit's goal is to address the customer's concern, find a solution, and ensure they are satisfied with the outcome, that Priya is satisfied with the outcome.
Sure.
Okay. Now, I want others to do little bit of a documentation of what the Amit's, responses are when Priya is going to raise her frustration and she's giving a call to Amit. All right. Okay. So Priya, you can take a minute to think of, because it has to seep in a little. Amit
Right.
also. Okay. And you have just, we'll give, I think 1-2 minutes are good enough, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So I've
sorry.
called you now, Amit.
Yeah.
So Amit, I have been struggling with this internet thing for 10 days now. I would have made at least 5 calls. Can you please pull out my history and see what the issue is and resolve this once and for all, yeah?
Certainly, Priyaji. I could see that you have made certain calls, and I apologize for that. Let me also talk about, from the backend team, what has been the issue, and so that I can give you a satisfactory reply and also the solution to your problem. Well, can I put you on hold for a minute? I mean,
Do
for
I
half
have
a
a
second.
choice?
Priyaji, I can understand, but without understanding the real concern, real problem,
So
from our
exactly. So
side,
just put me on. So put me on hold if you need to put me on
yeah,
hold.
just
Let's
20
resolve my
seconds.
issue.
Yeah, just 20 seconds. So now 20 seconds are over. Yeah, Priyaji, sorry for keeping you on hold. I checked out from my backend team. There has been a municipality digging of road, which has basically manipulated our network area. And because of the network digging, the road digging, our network has a problem, and we have rectified it soon. So perhaps by today, 4 o'clock in the evening, you will get to know that yes, the internet lines are perfectly moving fine.
Amit, I'm sorry, I'm not okay with this. Because since the last 10 days, the same thing has been told to me. And every time there is a new deadline which is given. Today 4 o'clock, tomorrow 10 o'clock, day after 12 noon. But these timelines are not being met. I am okay for you to tell me that, you know what, for the next 1 month, you're not going to have internet. I'll figure out another way of dealing with this. But I'm not okay with the kind of response that I'm getting from your team.
I completely understand, Priyaji, on your agony. The thing is that we also have to deal with the municipality in terms of the other activities. And because of some nasty issues, they have dug up the road, which was not supposed to be dug up. And because of that, our internet services have got annoyed. But we have resolution. We have come to a resolution with the team, and today our team is on the site. We will get the things repaired by 2 o'clock, so that 4 o'clock the internet facilities are up without any breakage.
Okay, tell me if it's not done by 4, what is it that I should do?
Perry, I can assure you that by 4 o'clock the things will be up. And as I see that for last 10 days you have made 5 calls and you've been chasing it up, so I would extend a kind of a discount on this month's bill by about 20%. So whatever is the bill which comes in, I will offer a discount of 20%, so that whatever loss, whatever trouble you have incurred during the process of those 10 days, you can you can be I would say compensated in some way. But I'm really sorry, because as a company we ensure that the internet speed, the reliability comes in first hand. Our customer comes in first hand. And I mean, as I see you being a valued customer for last couple of months, I would not I would not be hesitant in assuring you that this same problem will occur again.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Excellent and good data had come out. So, I want to get to know from the participants, how did Amit handle this? What are some of the observations, sir? Anybody? What are some of the observations? Here is a irate customer, Priya, who is really frustrated because her internet connection is not working, and repeatedly she's been complaining, but no response yet. Okay. And now Amit was there as their customer representative. How do you think he handled this situation? And what kind of a comfort do you think? We'll check with Priya what comfort she got with the responses. But what do you feel about it? Yeah. What kind of a
Yeah,
behavior
ma'am.
did he demonstrate?
Ma'am, I
Huh?
could find Nitendra here. So three
Did
things
you
I
write
could.
some notes, anybody? Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. So three things I could observe of Amit Gupta. One was a composure, what he had maintained throughout the conversation.
Uh-huh.
Second thing
Composure.
was, yeah,
Okay.
second thing was seeking attention to details. So first he understood
Uh-huh.
what is the crux of the issue before directly getting into the
Okay.
solution.
Okay, 1 second. You said getting to understand the details. This
Yeah,
is an
attention.
inference. This
Yes.
is an inference. What is
Okay.
this? It means
Inference.
you inferred this, that he was getting to details by observing something. So
Yes,
what
ma'am.
did he do, or what is that he did for you to infer that he was getting to details? Did he ask some questions, or what do you think what he did to infer that he was looking at details?
Yeah. So what he did, he tried to understood what is the issue
Uh,
with her,
uh,
and the other
wha-
part what he did,
how
he
did
went
he
to the
understand? Again,
asking
understand
by
the
questions,
issue
ma'am.
is your inferring. So what is
Asking
that he
questions.
asked? Asking question. So
Relevant
when you're
questions.
assessing and documenting, you have to say he asked this question to
Okay.
get an idea of, you know. So you're
Yes, ma'am.
getting me the clarity. I'm trying to make you
Yes, ma'am.
understand how you have to differentiate, because a lot many times what we do, we judge, we infer. So this is what you now. Yeah, good. I mean, your thought process was very good. I must congratulate on that. Yeah, carry on. Anybody else, or you would like to say some more things?
No, ma'am. That's thank you.
Okay. Anyone else, please? Yeah. Nobody? Melissa?
I also saw that he gave a deadline to the customer.
Yeah.
So, and he gave an offer for compensation if the deadline was not met.
Okay, good. So that is in the end, resolution. So, how did he close the deal? Resolution by giving 1, 2, 3,
Right.
not just leaving it open. So he said, yes, I'll come back by 4 o'clock. It will be it if it does not work by 4 o'clock, then there will be some amount of compensation on that, etc. So he closed that. He did not keep it open-ended. Even the resolution had a closure. Okay, good
Right.
observation. All right.
And he
Okay.
talked about the
Yeah.
different stakeholders that were involved in this entire problem. And some of them being external parties, some being from his own company, and what kind of activities his company is doing to resolve the issue.
Okay. So he looked at 1, 2, 3 things, and he talked about, evaluated. He also took the customer through activities which are going on, and parallelly evaluating them and saying why it was actually getting disconnected, etc., whatever. And then also offering a kind of a resolution. Okay.
Right.
Yes, I think that was a good observation. Yeah. Now let us come to Priya. Priya,
Yes.
what kind of a behavior comforted you? First of all, I want to ask you, did you feel that before even jumping into solution, did he acknowledge the entire problem, looking at it, that when did you do it, for how long has it been happening? Did you get that feeling?
Yes, I did.
Acknowledgement.
I felt like
Acknowledging it.
the first thing
Ah,
he did was to acknowledge.
acknowledgement, saying that
And
yes, yeah.
also, he
Mm.
kept reiterating
Mm.
that, I can see you've called us 5 times. I can see that,
Okay.
we've not been able to resolve this. I think that was a big acknowledgement. Not once did I feel that he was being defensive
Right.
and
Okay.
canceling what I was saying.
Okay, okay, okay.
So that gave me a lot of
So,
comfort. The other thing that gave me
comfort,
comfort was his composure.
composure, right? I mean, acknowledging the fact that yes, there is some kind of a discomfort. I know, I recognize the fact that you are having concerns, but here are our concerns, and so he also offered you a resolution, giving a timelines, etc. Right?
Right.
Huh? Yeah. So, when this is almost like the situation is, if I were to recruit a customer care executive, so what happens typically, these are some of those critical situations which are going to happen to any customer service. Whether you buy a product which is not working and the customer is going to shout at you, right? Or whether it's an internet provider or any other thing, there are going to be such situations. So I need to understand, hey, is this guy whom I'm going to select, is he also going to shout back and not listen? Huh? So listening is very, very important. Or even the customer, Priya is also talking, Amit is also talking. Was there any situation? You will also find the situations where
Right.
I'm also talking and he's also talking and nobody is listening. So does listening become very important there?
Yeah.
So I have to gather, does this guy Amit really listen to her, or is he only rambling all the time before even listening to her problem? Because when I listen to my customer's problem, the customer wants to, you know,
Went out.
come out with everything. Tell. You just have to, yes, ma'am, yes, I know. I know how it feels. I know how it feels. But itself will give a comforting factor. Okay. But even if this guy is also going to shout, so you are going to give such situations to understand. So criticality is what, that when I'm putting an assessment center, ensure that I'm giving a simulation exercise, either in terms of like problem solving or easy, like, in customer service executive, I could also ask for information seeking, easy seeking information, looking at that dimension also. I could also put listening as a sub competency, right? Whether he is a good listener, is he listening, or only he is just selectively listening. I can do selective listening also, no? So is he
Right.
listening to the complete, okay, internet is not working, but till when? What has that person done? Already raised tickets. Okay, then what's happening? So listening to the entire. So that is how, then if these behavioral indicators are there, then I will observe everything, record everything. I will show you how typically one does that, and then put them on a scale. Like typically, now that we are here, let me just, though I'll show the entire thing. Can you see this?
Yeah.
So when you get, so I'll be marking them where you are exactly, so that I can document which behavior is aligned with what, and then the rating is given. So negative behaviors, positive behaviors. Say example, Amit was not listening and it is a negative behavior, I'll put somewhere 1. Huh? And all that positive, he will get it on 5 or 4 or whatever. Like for example, uses summaries, checks, agreements, etc. Yes, he has done this behavior. Okay, I'll put it on 5. So this is how we will accumulate the data, document the data, and present it as a report. This is another assessment metrics I wanted to show you. Yeah. We also
Ma'am,
wanted
I
to
have a
see.
question on the earlier slide that you showed on the negative and positive behaviors. So again, here, do you think it's better to have a 4 scale rating rather than a 5?
I actually prefer a 4 scale rating. I'll tell you why. It eliminates central tendency. But you could do a 5 also. Very
Okay.
common to use a 5 or a 4. Okay. Provided your bars, your indicators, you have created those bars where your negative behaviors and positive behaviors are given very well, so that you can anchor whatever has been observed in
Right.
the right scale. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, that is important.
Ma'am, one question. I mean, with the 5-point rating scale or the odd point rating scale, I have already experienced, while evaluating my subordinates also. I mean, and this is really, what we studied during the management course, that central tendency and all those halo effects and
Leniency
all those
factor.
things, leniency factor and all those comes in picture. As a human being, when I am evaluating my subordinates, and I am very candid when I'm sharing with all of the participants and with you all this thinking, while looking at the bottom two ratings, I always tend to come to the third rating, the mid one, because
Absolutely. I will
somehow
totally.
I see that extreme left.
No, I will totally agree with you. I think it is Amit or somebody, but I'll totally agree with you. You take a customer satisfaction survey. You take an employee engagement survey. You take anything which involves, your employees or your customers, giving you a score on a particular scale. If it is 5 rating scale, there is a certain amount of a central tendency. For example, even your performance review, if you have a 1 to 5, typically we tend to do it on a 3, right?
3 to 5.
A 3
Actually, 3
on
to
a
5,
5 pointer, 3, because that's where you will say, hey, let me go by the central tendency and give him an average, because 60 or 70% of the people have to be 3. So I will just put you there, right?
Right.
So I would prefer, especially for other things like this, assessment centers, etc., use a 4 rating scale, because it pushes you to take a choice of whether you want to be on a 1 or a 2 or 3 or 4, rather than being safe, neither this side nor the side, and just be on a 3.
Right.
Okay. So then accordingly, you will align your behaviors 1 to 4.
Correct.
Okay. So I want you to do another exercise where I think Vilma has already sent you a job description of Virgin Mobile for the customer care champion. Okay, so you are required to create, design an assessment center matrix. So what does it mean? You have to create. So this is called an assessment center matrix, where you have to list out those 4 or 5 competencies, and then list out the various multiple simulation tests or exercise you would use to assess those competencies. So this would be that matrix. So you have a job description of a customer service champion. And this is actually a real life case. Okay. So the Virgin Group, having partnered with the Tatas, they are recruiting customer service champions. Okay. Now, what is that they are actually wanting to deliver to the customer? Value for money, good quality, brilliant customer service, innovation, competitively very challenging. Okay. And they are into what? Providing the telecom services. Right. Now, having said that, who would be a very good fit? Who is customer focused, open, fun, and friendly, energetic and enthusiastic, and self-starter. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these are the 4 things they are actually wanting to look at in a customer champion. Now, I would ask you to use, instead of a self-starter, you can look at team player and problem solver. So the competencies: problem solver, team player 2, and customer focus 3, open, fun, and friendly 4, energetic and the enthusiastic 5. Okay, these are the 5 competencies. Please create an assessment matrix. If you needed to assess these 5 competencies, what are some of those simulation exercises or tests you would give? Already you have a list of that, okay, which Vilma has shared. and Vilma will quickly break you into 2 groups. So you can use an Excel sheet, just as the way I showed you a framework. I can show it to you again. You want to make a note of those 5 competencies: customer focus, open, fun, friendly, energetic, enthusiastic, team player, problem solver. Okay. So these are the competencies you have to evaluate for using an assessment center, and you need to create an assessment matrix just like this. Okay. That means vertically you will list out those competencies and you will write down all those exercises. Every competency definitely should be observed at least in 2 simulations. At least in 2 simulations. Okay. Welcome. So who's going to present first?
Okay, so we listed down the dimensions. We looked at the dimension to say, okay, customer focus, what are the tools we could use to assess customer focus? And similarly for each one, we looked at, and that's how we built the tools. And then we looked at the tools to say, for example, business games and simulation. We can also, assess energetic, enthusiastic, being a team player, problem solving through business games and solution. That's how we arrived at the matrix.
Okay.
And we also, when we looked at problem solving, we also had in basket, for example, which will help us assess problem solving. But we removed it because none of the other dimensions we were able to assess through an in basket. So we removed that as a tool.
Okay. Okay. All right. So customer focus. All right. Let us take the first competency, customer focus. Now, essentially, when you are building, I gave you a background. When we are building an assessment center, what is important? A, competencies for the role. So you have the competencies for the role, right? Okay.
Right.
And once I say competencies, that means you are also now taking into consideration the dimensions of that competencies also, right? That means behavioral indicators. Understood? Though I have actually not added them because it would take time for you all, right? Now, B, very important, the purpose of the assessment center. What is the purpose of the assessment center? Selection. Selection of what? Customer?
Champions.
Champion. Okay. What industry? Industry is very important because your exercises will have to be in the context of that. You can use a particular exercise, but the relevance, the impact differs based on the industry. So you have to make it relevant. All right. So industry is what? An
Telco.
ITS or a BPO kind of a thing, right? Call center kind of a thing. Got it? So keeping that into view, so that means this typically is taking calls, irritated customers, etc. Role play becomes absolutely a very apt kind of a simulation, right?
Sure.
So I can similarly play one role play where I will say, hey, this is a complaint, which is almost very close to the day-to-day situation he's going to go through when he comes on the job. Correct? So I will give you that. Now, case study.
Yeah.
If I were to have another industry, okay, customer dealing with certain accounts, certain other, it could be a different industry, maybe I would go with a case study because it would need looking at the customer. The customers are dependent on the industry and what level. So this guy is only going to get customers on the phone who are going to take up complaints, etc., etc. So are you seeing the relevance? And of no relevance, case study won't have any relevance. I can have something else there. Just think about it. I'm just leaving you with this thought.
Sure.
How? Now, Personal interview, maybe I'm not saying personal interview, I will give it to you there, saying that tomorrow what I'm going to teach you, because a normal, typical, traditional personal interview is not going to give an insight into the real behavior of customer focus. But a
Right.
behavioral event interviewing will give you BEI, what we call it, will give you an insight. So I will say, if I'm taking a guy with 1 year experience or so, I will ask him, hey, in your past experience, now tell me critical situation where you have handled customer, and I will pick on certain situation, his situation, and depending on the intensity of the handling of the customer, then I will draw observations, etc., etc. Okay, so there I will give it to you. Okay, but case study may not be a right appropriate thing. But another industry at another level, where again I have to look at customer focus, definitely case study can become pertinent. Got it,
Right.
guys? Please, for the entire group. Huh?
Yeah.
So what is important is you have to use the exercises depending on the nature of the industry, the purpose of the assessment center, the level of that selection, what we are looking at. And that's where job analysis becomes very, very important, because it has to be close to the tasks that job does. Close to the tasks the job does. Open, fun, friendly. Again, I will give it to you. Role play, absolutely. A simulation, I will give it to you. A group activity also, I will give it to you. Because in a group activity, I want to see how much of friendliness, how much of fun, and how much of innovation. Because I want Virgin Mobile, this guy, actually, that's one of his core value, in fact. It has to be fun and it has to be really very friendly. So I will look at it. Because a person who is not open and who doesn't derive fun can't suddenly show that kind of a behavior. Let me also tell you. You may say, no, I can become suddenly fun-loving and all. No. After gradually, when you do that activity, you can definitely you want to test it in 2 situations. Okay? And it will come out. Now, energetic and enthusiastic also, I can look at some group activities and role plays, etc. Excellent. Team player. When it is a team player, will you give an individual activity or will you give a group activity? First thing,
Group.
you will give a group activity. So a group activity maybe with some kind of a goal there, right? Huh?
Yeah.
And yes, personal business game, yes, group activity, absolutely. Problem solving, will you give an individual or a problem solving? Here, yes, depending on that, a small caselet, maybe, and I can actually give a group activity also, which, helps, whether it is team, he is also a team player and he is also,
And he's also solving the problem.
Because what kind of behaviors will you look at when you're looking at problem solving? Anybody, guys?
Analytical
Anybody who can say what kind of behaviors will you look at?
analytical thinking होना चाहिए.
Can you observe analytical thinking, Aman?
Not really.
Huh? So, what is the question you have to ask for yourself, Aman? What does he do to show analytical thinking? That means, does he ask question? Does he collect data? Huh?
Does he come up with
Are you getting me now, the
different kind of solutions?
Huh? Is he asking? Is he giving solutions? Is he proposing new opinions? Right? Is he seeking a lot of information for solving? Is he looking at, has he identified what are the problems? Right? Under what circumstances these problems? Is he asking such questions? Or where is the problem? So these are the things which you can observe. Got it? Then you can infer, hey, he's trying to look at a problem and then he's trying to understand the problem and then his problem. So one is you can give an individual problem, or two is you can also give a group activity where you want to see both team player and also problem solving activity. Like for example, not for the customer focus. I can put 5 of you and say, hey, now please, leaderless group, discuss women are good leaders or men are good leaders, and also appoint one leader among your group. Then all that you do, I can document, and then clearly will show me who are the people, who are wanting, I can actually see contributing to this goal, a team player, who are suggesting new ideas, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of data can come out. But on the whole, good work done, guys. But I hope you have been able to understand that when you have identified the competencies, which are very, very important, job analysis is important, right kind of dimensions are important, because dimensions are the key for designing the right kind of tests. The same test can have a different impact. For a senior person, it will have different. For a junior person, it will be different. Okay? Yeah. Can I see the other group, please?
Here we were looking at, for each of these dimensions that were identified, we wanted to ensure that all the identified tests, minimum at least 2 tests were, being able to evaluate each dimension.
Right.
And at the
Right.
same time, each test was also testing multiple dimensions. So
Very
any
good.
test which
Okay.
was only probably going to test one dimension, we did not pick any such test up.
Yeah.
So
That's
we felt,
important. Good.
right. So we felt that the psychometric test would have been able to evaluate for us the openness kind of personality type, energetic, enthusiastic, and team player.
Yeah. So I just want to make one comment here. Typically, when you do a psychometric test, so that by itself does not help you to understand a person. Let me also tell you.
Right.
Okay. So say, for example, you have done a psychometric MBTI. All right. So it gives you a type profile, whether you're an extrovert or introvert or having had that profile, now you will do the other tests, group discussion or role play and simulation, etc. And you have gathered data. So what happens is it will help you to kind of check with your psychometric profile, saying that, hey, yes, whatever the data I have documented, he has observed, goes with that profile what you're saying. But by itself, organizations do not take it as a tool to take certain kind of decisions. Are you with me, guys? Please be ensured. So the psychometric test only helps you to, it supports your decision. All right. But by itself, it is not a tool to help you to decide. All right. That's one thing I wanted to tell you all. Yeah. Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then is the role play.
Play and job simulation. Yeah. Again, structured interview, I'll give it to you as structured, but to be very, very accurate, you can call it as PEI, because that's another technology or a tool which we use to definitely get into, because it has a very structured, because it uses the STAR technique, and then it uses the critical situation. So because then you are going to observe, record, classify, and evaluate the entire behavior. Okay. Done.
Right.
Yeah.
So role play, again, we thought that it will be able to capture almost, other than the team player, most others will get
Role
captured.
play, open, fun, friendly, role play, maybe not exactly. Think about it. Because role play will be a little focused in terms of whether you want to look at customer, whether you want to look at, performance reviews as a supervisor and subordinate, etc. So here I would not say that, it's going to evaluate your fun and friendly nature. Okay. Yeah, that definitely not maybe. Yeah. Group discussions or I would say more than group. unless until you are giving a topic of very funny thing, okay, let them discuss and let's see how much of fun and they are going to. I would say a business game or something like that also will be interesting, and I would give it to you as a group discussion. But depending on what kind of a topic would you give, because here you are not going to give a serious topic, right? You're going to give some fun and fun topic where because if your instrument does not allow to respond, because what is instrument? Stimuli to give data. It does not help you to give that data, then how will you observe it? Are you with me now?
Right. But I had a question there. So, for example, when you talked about the role play and you said that maybe fun and friendly may not come across. Maybe not all three, but for example, the role play that Amit and Priya carried out, right? So we could see a little bit of openness that Amit was showing in terms of being open to different solutions, being friendly.
Openness, I will give it. Fun and friendly, because I was looking at all the three together.
Right.
Openness, definitely I will give it. How open you are. Are you open to other person? Are you listening and listening to others' views? I mean, the customer's views. Yes, openness, because listening, in listening itself, you have to be open. You can't have a selective listening. But fun and friendly, I will not recommend that you will mix it up with a customer complaint. Okay?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sure.
Somebody raised a hand. Okay. Priya, you want?
This is
Yeah.
Priya.
Tell
Yeah.
me.
So when we look at the job description for this particular role, they have said that, this as an organization, they want everybody to be open, fun, and friendly. And if this person's core job is to take calls of the customer, that's where this person will be expected to be open, fun, and friendly. Right? So if the role play is designed in that manner, then we will be able to, frankly, this will be one of the strongest way to assess that, isn't it?
But role play will be more focused towards a complaint as such, if you want to be customer focused. Definitely fun and friendly is some nature, a trait you want to find out.
Sure.
A trait.
Sure.
Suddenly that, it can be developed, of course, but takes a longer time. Think about it. See your friend circle or anybody. People who are fun and friendly are little different to who are people very quiet and introvert. So you suddenly can't say, because this role requires the fun and friendliness, that this guy will become immediately different. Can't.
Right.
No?
Right.
So I don't want people like that. I want people, because people who are fun and friendly will also look at customer complaints in a nice open way and deal with it. Not that, oh my God, and look it very differently. You got it?
Okay.
The way they will deal with those complaints will be of a different way, because I'll be open, because I will be very proactive, or I will go in the conditioning of, hey, I want to really help this customer, not say, hey, another customer, another complaining guy. You getting me? Different approach.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Team player, group discussion. Yes, I will give it to you. Problem solver. Okay. You can have a role play problem solving, and you can also have a job simulation. In fact, for a job like this customer, you can actually bring Lego blocks and tell them, giving instructions. How does it, I'm not able to, how does he solve that? Over a phone. Really? So you can be very innovative doing things. Okay. All right, guys. Good job done. Okay. Now, you have just 10 minutes and you have this exercise there. Let's see. It's an independent exercise. Where is that? Where is that? This is a very interesting exercise in basket, very common in a assessment center. And I'm sure Priya has already heard of it, in basket or in tray, what we call it. And I explained to you where we are looking at time management, prioritization, planning and organizing, delegation, etc. So you have 10 minutes. Now there are a list of things in your mailbox. These are the things I want you to, this is an independent exercise, okay? And please do them. Okay. The first, email from a team member. Your team member is requesting guidance on how to handle a difficult client situation. The client is dissatisfied with the quality of a recent project deliverable. So respond to the mail, providing guidance on how to address the client's concerns and proposing a solution to rectify the issue. So, yeah. Priya, you want to respond?
I think I would respond to this like right away because
Immediately?
yeah,
Right
because
away?
this is a client
Okay.
and a dissatisfied client.
Okay, fine. So this will be urgent on your agenda and
Yeah.
team member. So you will call the team member, go through the report, and it's urgent and important.
Right.
Okay. All of you will agree with this?
Yes.
Who does
Yes.
not?
Yes,
Huh?
ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Urgent and important. It
Yeah.
falls into the bracket of urgent and important. It may be important, but probably not urgent. You can do it at a later point of time because it is a client report. So you do it. Memo from the HR department. HR department has announced changes to the company's vacation policy. Review the memo and prepare a brief summary of the changes to share with your team in a staff meeting scheduled for later in the day. So anyone else who wants to respond to this?
Yeah, I'll respond to that. I'll say it's important, but it's not urgent. So, I mean, I do it.
Absolutely. It is not urgent, right? It's a vacation policy which is important but can be done at a later point of time. So you will do it at a later point of time. Done. Okay, I'll take it. Urgent voicemail from the IT department is experiencing an outage that is affecting your department's productivity. Return the call and gather information about the issue, determine the expected time frame for resolution, and communicate the impact of your team. It will fall under what kind of a grid?
Ma'am, urgent and it will be done.
Urgent and important. Absolutely very urgent and very important because it is impacting productivity, right? And every minute is money, productivity. So therefore, you will attend to it immediately and find out a resolution. How much time? Yeah. So everybody will agree with that resolution? Urgent and important?
Yes.
And do it immediately? Okay. Document from the finance department. Has sent a budget report, analyze the report, identify areas where expenses can be reduced without compromising productivity, and prepare a brief memo outlining your proposed cost-saving measure. Yeah. Again, under that grid, will you do it immediately, urgent, or is it important, but you will do it at a later point?
It's important, but not urgent to be done right away because cautiously you have to take care of the things. You have to analyze and then you have to come back with a detailed report on that.
Spot on, Aman, spot on. Absolutely. It's not something that immediately you'll just go shoot it out. You have to read the report. There are a lot of, implications for it. It is important, huh? But maybe you won't do it urgent. It's not urgent. You will do it because it needs a lot of time to look at it and do it later. Will everybody agree with me? And agree with Aman? Yeah? Please give a reaction, guys. Nobody is giving
In fact,
reaction.
this is Amit. In fact,
Yeah,
I have also categorized as third category can be deferred. So I would prefer to defer it.
No, I wanted that it is important, but
it is
can
important.
be done because it needs a lot more data. You need to look at it, call the go meet finance guys also, no?
True.
Yeah. Now, email from a cross-functional team member seeking your input on a joint project. Review the mail and respond, providing your perspective and suggesting ways to collaborate effectively. What will you do?
Important, not urgent.
Important, not urgent.
And do it on my
Yeah,
own.
and also maybe you'll delegate to one of the team members saying, hey, what is that joint project? First of all, get me
Get
inputs, everything.
details, some ready-made
Get
details,
me
and
the
then work on
details,
that.
have the work done by him, and then you will read it, right? And then you can respond. Great. Okay, guys. So, but this is a very simple thing. But well, when you have in an assessment center and inbox today, you can also do the digitized way of doing. So there'll be a lot more things where you really need to, delegate or analyze, quick thinking, plan, organize, etc. So it's a very interesting, what is it, exercise, which most of the assessment centers use it to test certain key competencies, because this is one exercise where you can do 3 or 4 competencies. Okay. All right. Any questions thus far? Opened the pudia. I've talked about competencies, competency dimensions, then list of multiple evaluation techniques or tools to evaluate this, and then talked about the assessment metrics. They talked about just assessors or observers. Now, how do they actually fall in place? What do you do typically? Let me just. So typically, you can have a rating scale of 5 or 4, which we talked about, having behaviors anchored on those rating scales. Okay. So typically, an assessment center, if you have a rating scale of 1 to 5, so with poor, marginal, acceptable, good, or outstanding, typically, then the documented feedback report based on the behaviors demonstrated, then overall rating can be given for a particular candidate or a participant or an employee who has gone through the assessment center or a development center. Okay. Now, I think I have typically an assessment report will look like this: participant, assessors, okay, and this is a rating scale, and then they will have, for all the dimensions written, they will also give a rating. So I'll show you another report as well, which will give you a lot more importance. Now, the assessors are typically trained on a technique called ORCE, which is also called ORS. Very important to understand this. ORS, it's called observe. O stands for observe. R stands for record. C stands for classify. And E stands for evaluate. The first and the foremost thing what they do when they sit as observers or assessors during the assessment process, all that they have to do is observe. And what will they need to observe, please? Can you tell me? Any of the participants, please. Yeah. What will they need to observe?
Observe what the candidate is doing.
So what it is called behavior, right?
Saying
Behavior of a
behaviors.
particular. So they will be given a format where every competency with those behaviors will be given, and they have to closely watch, observe, and sometimes it will be so given very well that the behavior will be given on a rating scale, and they just have to tick and write that. So that plus or minus or whatever. So observe. So they cannot do what? Judgmenting, inferencing, evaluation, nothing. Observe, then record it in their format. Now, what is classified? What is classified?
Information.
Typically, what is classified? Anybody who wants to attempt?
So basically the yeah, sorry, I'll just
Categorizing the sorry. Please.
Yeah, anybody. I think we have so many
Go on,
people
Aman.
who said. Yes. What is classified? Classify is after you have observed and recorded, now you will actually put that whatever you have observed, saying that, hey, this is a positive or a negative, reflection of that particular competency. This one. Got it? Yes. Give me a reaction. You know exactly what is classified now.
Got it.
Huh?
Yeah.
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 So once you see this, you are going to put it as a negative behavior or positive behavior of that particular competency, which will be written: communication, influencing, etc. And once you do that, then what are you going to do? All of you are going to, all the assessors are going to sit together, evaluate, and come to a consensus of giving that whether the person is at a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5. Okay. All right. Now this is, what is this? Now these are all the competencies. These are all the exercises. Now say for example, Anjana got in communication group exercise 5, analysis presentation 4, interview 4. So I have to give an overall rating. Okay. And maybe she got 5, but all the assessors, because they will come together, integrate their data, so they will come to a consensus, not weighted average or anything. They will back and forth go through all the observed behaviors and give a rating based on this 4. So this is the overall rating of what accumulation of all the ratings they have got for different exercises. Okay? Clear? Okay? All right. Now, why does, like somebody said, why does assessment center is highly predictable and validated? Because research has showed that, structured interviews, cognitive ability tests, etc., their predictive validity is like this. But the highest predictive validity of selecting a candidate or promoting or using it for whatever purpose are the assessment centers, or the assessment centers. Okay. So you can use it for entry level. You can use it for mid level. You can also use it for senior level. Now, when you use it for mid level, you can use something called what? Leadership assessment as well. You can also use something called a multi-rater feedback or a 360 degrees feedback. Has anyone heard of a multi-rater or a 360 degrees feedback? That means you are sending out a feedback form to some of the key stakeholders, withholding the name and saying that, yeah, please give us a feedback. And, there are various questions asked in terms of all the job competencies, etc. So 360 degrees feedback typically used for a development center as opposed to a assessment center, because you are actually wanting to develop this person or coach this person. So that's where you use it in mostly development centers, not for assessment center. Okay. Yeah. Even for leadership development programs, you can use. Now, when you get a report, you can also give a report in this. This is called a what? A spider diagram. Now, say for example, in this diagram, there are how many? I could say there are 5 competencies required. Okay. Now, I will just take the same example. Customer, service champion for that Virgin Mobile. So there are 5 competencies required, and I will also have the bars at what proficiency levels am I requiring for that particular role. That will be written as benchmark or that green color. And when I will do the assessment, I will know exactly where is that participant vis-a-vis whatever is required. So I'll know exactly the gaps. This is called a spider, what is it? Designed for a competency assessment center. Okay. So very interesting. And we used to do it very often for all our positions whenever we did assessment centers. Now, typically you can also have like this. say for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 competencies are there. You have done an assessment center. So then you will actually say, hey, at customer orientation, he was at 4. And then for relation building, he was here, he was here. As opposed to, you can also give what is required, as is and required. And this is a typical timetable of an assessment center, guys. Starts in the morning with an orientation, then exercise, then break, etc., etc. I'll be sharing this presentation with you all so that it helps you. So as I said, development assessment center is mostly used for selection, okay, where you don't give back a feedback, a report, and the primary purpose is only to select, decide, and identify the most qualified candidates. In a development center, it is more diagnostic. You are using it for what? Developmental purposes, to understand the training gaps, maybe within the same levels, or maybe for a promotion level you want to develop. So the key for a developmental center is in terms of giving them feedback, coaching, etc. Whereas in an assessment center, you don't do that. That's the key difference in a development and an assessment center. Okay. As we wind up, so these are some of the users, and this is where you can actually use your assessment centers information, that is filling up competency gaps, ensuring that there are best practices. There is also certain amount of risk management in it. So overall, it raises the bar and ensures there is predictability, hiring the best talent, and also improving the performance of people. So though it is very costly and expensive, but most of the organizations are using assessment centers and developmental centers, as I said, because there is a huge amount of predictive validity in terms of the performance. Okay, so with this, we come to the end of the session of assessment center.